It's on.
We're gonna get started.
Well, now.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. And I just wanted the congressman to know that it's a special occasion because I wore pants and not shorts. That's when you know it's serious. My name is Mike Ford. I happen to be the pastor here, for better or worse, of this congregation, but we are so blessed to be together today. So a couple things to quell some fears. First of all, this is not a church service, so we will not be handing around the plates. And second of all, this is a nonpartisan event. I just wanted to let you know that we have a private space here, and you may have noticed the signage when you came in, that we are safe from all forms of intrusion. And we also have a system that if somebody decides to get a little snarky with us, we can set off an alarm, and these officers will have a lot of help coming soon. So the one thing I always urge is we are being watched. We are going worldwide. You're on the internet right now, so behave yourself. And I'm going to be out of the picture, so I'm going to behave myself too. So I also have to offer this in way of fairness. If there is any other candidate that wishes to use this space, we will make it available to them as well. It does not matter which party you're in or who you are as a candidate, because we think that this is a meeting house on times other than Sunday morning. So we're glad to be able to house and have a nice, cool place to be and a good crowd to be with. So the most important thing I'm going to say right now is the bathrooms are through that door and it's slightly to the right. I think I've had enough.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for being so generous with allowing us to use this space whenever we ask to use it. So it's been wonderful to know that's always in our back pocket. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jane Merriam, and I am the chair of the Charlotte County Democratic Executive Committee, which is a lot of words. I really am so grateful for all of you to be here today, to take your Saturday afternoon and spend some time and learn about David Jolly and what he's standing for as he runs for governor of Florida. David was represented the 13th Congressional District in U.S. Congress from 2014 to 2017. And since that time, many of you have probably seen him on MSNBC and CNN as a political commentator and loved all the words that he has said during those times on. He is going to speak to us for 20 minutes or so, and then the rest of the time we'll have time for you to ask him questions. any question you want to ask is fair game. If you're going to ask a question, come over to the mic here to the left. We are on the internet. We're on YouTube and Facebook, and the camera will be facing the microphone, so that way the people online can see you as well as those of us here in the auditorium. We are asking you to limit your questions to 2 minutes, and to make sure that that happens, Judy, it will tell you when you have 30 seconds left. And Mike has told me he's turning off the mic after 2 minutes. So we want as many of you to get questions out as you can. And it's really important that we've got a lot of people here and a lot of people that may want to ask him individual questions. So try to please adhere to that. We have posters with QR codes that are, if you want to donate to David, and there are also some little cards that Nancy Corpening has passed out. The Jolly team was very nice and made a specific QR code for all the counties. So we'll know, David will know how much money comes in from Charlotte, from Sarasota, from Collier, from Lee. So if you have an extra $5, please think about donating it in, because we got a long ways to go in this race, and there's a lot of money with the other party, as we all know. Also wanted to remind everybody that we are having a No Kings rally next Saturday. How many went to the last one? So it'll be at the same place, Murdoch and 41, from 9 to 10. And please remember, it's a peaceful protest. If anyone ostracizes you or anything else, just ignore them and walk away. 2 more things. Nancy also had some cards. We are going to organize, the team is organizing a volunteer for the campaign. On next Friday at 5:30, there's going to be a Google Meet call. If you are interested in volunteering for David's campaign, we'll get that information out to you. Nancy has cards, asked me, and it's early to campaign, but we need to get everybody out there. We need to get moving on this, because November will be here before we know about it. We do have Drinking Liberally on Thursday as well. So I am done, and the next thing that I will say is, here's David Jolly.
Thank you all very much. That is some sound, huh? How we doing? Is that all right? I feel like I'm standing in a pulpit. We should all open our Bibles to John 3:16. Hey, thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for your participation in this. I want to do a couple things today. My father was a minister. I talk about my faith, but I learned from him, when you're up here, you tell people what you're going to say, you say it, and then you tell them what you said. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to talk about this today, and then we're going to do some question and answers. I'm going to introduce you to myself. For those of you who know me through MSNBC, thank you for being a part of the MSNBC family. I mean that. I sincerely mean that. Thank you for being a part of the family. It is a relationship you have between the two sides of the camera. Thank you. For those of you who are not regular viewers of MSNBC, you've probably saved a lot of money on counseling or on calories or on alcohol or whatever's gotten you through the last 10 years. Consider giving mightily to the Charlotte Democratic Party with those savings, and congratulations on your wise financial decisions. But I want to introduce you to myself. And then second, I want to tell you about the values of this campaign, the values that I hope to emulate as a candidate and as a person, but I think they're shared values among all of us. They're values that have slipped away from our state and slipped away from our country, but they're fundamental human values, they're state values, they're our country's values, and I think they're the values that will tether us together to actually bring about change. And then the third thing I'm going to share with you, and this is the thing I want you to leave with, is how we win this race next November, because we're going to win the governorship. We're going to win the governorship. And when I say we, I mean we, all of us, everyone in this room, in this state. I'm going to talk about this a lot today, this race and this cycle. What I'm going to ask you to be a part of is so much bigger than the candidate. This is not about David Jolly. This is not a candidacy about David Jolly. This is a candidacy and a campaign and a coalition about changing the direction of the state of Florida, and that means all of us. That means all of us. I've done a lot of campaign advising in my life, and I would not be in this race if I did not know that we could win. But I'm also going to tell you a little secret. Candidates rarely win races. People decide to change the direction of the country, change the direction of their town council, change the direction of the state. Now, candidates can lose elections, and my job is to make sure that I'm a candidate that's strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with you all in a coalition for change. We're going to talk about that a lot. But let's start with my introduction. And it starts with introducing you to my family and the love of my life, Laura Jolly. My wife is here. And we got two special guests because everybody says, where are the youth in the Democratic Party? Our 6-year-old daughter, Carolina, and our 4-year-old son, Teddy, are sitting over here as well. We don't bring them out on the trail very often. I'm sure you all could understand all the reasons why. This is a long weekend, and we decided to barnstorm Southwest Florida and to do it as a family. And for our kids to do that, that means the hotel has to have a lazy river. So your next governor is going to be able to write Yelp reviews on the best lazy rivers in the state of Florida. The first event we ever took them to was in the Villages. The Villages. Right? I'm looking around the room. They got y'all beat, folks, with age. I promise you they do. But you can imagine a 3-year-old and 5-year-old at the time were the king and queen of the ball. Our young son, Teddy, still marches around the backyard saying, "We're not going back." Cece's figured out the red team and the blue team, and so she knows how to cheer for the blue team. But obviously, part of my introduction is starting first with our family. This is a family decision. I'm not going to be transactional and say every bit of this race is about our kids, but in many ways it is. Our kids, your grandkids, but it's also about each one of us and our lived experiences. So to further the introduction, I was born in Pinellas County. I'm a 5th-generation Floridian. Doesn't make me a lick better. Thank you. Doesn't make me a lick better than someone that was born here yesterday, but my roots go deep in Florida. I was born in Pinellas in the Clearwater area. We lived in Miami for 10 or 12 years. As I mentioned, my father was a minister. My mother served in ministry alongside him, so we moved around the state a little bit. We were in Miami for 10 or 12 years. Then we were in Pasco County, where I graduated from high school. This was before the internet age, when Pasco was a little off the edge of the earth. We moved from Dade County to Dade City, which, boy, I'm not even sure those two places were on the same globe in 1980, whatever it was. And then I lived in Pensacola as well. So I've had the opportunity to live all over the state. I care deeply about the state, but it is true, we are so diverse and different culturally from South Florida up to North Florida, through Southwest Florida, certainly into the Panhandle and Lower Alabama. The last thing I'll tell you about my introduction, and it's for a very specific reason. I am a person of deep Christian faith. I speak about my faith often. I do. Now I want to tell you why. Why? It is not to evangelize. It is because my introduction would be incomplete if I didn't speak about something so important to me as my faith. But it is also to make the point that after 6 or 8 years of culture wars in the state of Florida, we need a governor who realizes that their private and personal faith stops at the steps to the State House. And I have to tell you how welcome Laura and I always feel when we walk into a church like this that expresses that spirit that everybody is welcome and everybody deserves dignity and respect and to be empowered and to be lifted up. It's one of the values of this campaign. But I also share that because sometimes I drop into saying something about faith and people will look like, what was that? So I introduce it because, look, Florida's different. In South Florida, we kind of start with the Old Testament. And you get a side eye when you mention your faith. By the time you get to the Panhandle, you get hallelujahs in the New Testament regions of the state. but I do mention it as part of my introduction and only for that reason. I do think whether you're a person of faith, whatever faith that might be, whoever you choose to worship, or frankly, the affinity I've built with people who identify as agnostic or atheists, who on most days are more charitable than the folks like me who sit on the church pews on Sunday mornings, I do think we all have certain shared values, and I'm going to talk about those values. I mentioned it earlier. But before I do, I want to say something kind of personal about our family. There's some odd dissonance. It's an odd experience to know that in this moment, Florida is ready for change, and to be a part of committing to run to be, I believe, the 47th governor of the state of Florida, while at the same time wondering if it's a state in which we should raise our children. That's real. That's not a political statement. That's real. We are a state right now that I think are gripped by two primary challenges. We have an affordability crisis that's hitting everybody in the state. Republican, Independent, Democratic. Milton, Florida to Miami, Nocatee to Naples, Mount Dora to Zephyr Hills, and everywhere in between. The affordability crisis is real. If you're a retiree wondering if your homeowner's insurance is going to price you out of your home, or your taxes are getting too high, or your utility rates are getting too high, if you're a young person wondering if you can commit to the economy of the state of Florida, if you're a family trying to put food on the table and access health care in a state that hasn't expanded Medicaid, where ACA credits are about to expire, and simply the cost of getting dental or medical care is more than your family can afford, the affordability crisis is real. And so, yes, so that is everyone's lived experience. For us, it is an economic decision. Do we commit to raising our kids in the state of Florida? What does the economy look like for the next 10 to 20 years? And when they reach the age of majority, what does that mean for them? Because right now, while people over 60 years old continue to move to Florida, young people continue to leave. Young people continue to leave. The affordability crisis is one reason. The second challenge is because we are a state that has been gripped by culture wars. Culture wars. And whether you personally feel it or not, culture wars have victims. Culture wars have victims. Whether it is an attack on the franchise and the suffrage of communities of color by making voting harder and less accessible. Whether it is an attack on communities depending on who they worship or who they love. Culture wars have victims. Whether you're a teacher saying you can't actually help a student along depending on their life and their love and the community they come from. Culture wars have victims. Culture wars have victims. That is the moment we find ourselves in Florida. We have an affordability crisis and a culture war that has created victims. So what are the values? What are the values that in this moment tether and tie us together? Tether and tie us together for the Democrats in the room, and I promise you, not everybody here is a registered Democrat. I promise you, today will be our 80th community event since we started this race for the governor's office, 80. And in every room, there are independents and Republicans who are available to us to be a part of this coalition. But the values I'm going to talk about, first and foremost to my Democratic friends, I believe are strong enough to tie the Democratic Party together. From the young, emerging, progressive, socialist Democrat to the last blue dog standing in this state, I think we've got values that can tether us together, but the values are bigger than our party, and the values can tether together a coalition that includes independents and no party affiliates, can tether together those who look cynically at politics and say, what's in it for me? I don't have any reason to trust. Within communities of color, people who say, I've worked so hard for decades, but nothing seems to change. The young person who says, why should I trust? Why should I trust a politician today? Because nothing changes for me. I look at my parents and grandparents, they own a house, a car, but I don't have that avenue right now. I can't see how I can economically achieve that. There are values, I think, that are big enough to tie us together. Policies emanate from values. What are the three values? What are the three values that I talk about every day in this campaign? First, the economy should work for everybody. Everybody. The economy should work for everybody. Now look, that doesn't mean we need to condemn success. We should congratulate success. We're a capitalist economy that allows people to create their own opportunities. That's a good thing. But the truth is the economy is not working for everybody. For the lowest wage earner, for the young person just entering the workforce, for the family, as I mentioned, in need of health care and food for their two children. making hard decisions about whether or not to pay their car insurance or whether or not they can go late on rent. The economy is not working for everybody, and it should. It should. Look, I don't care about the labels. You're going to find out today I eschew labels. I eschew the left-right spectrum. I know Democrats, Republicans have been caught in this debate over capitalism, socialism, communism for the past 10 years. I don't care about that. Let's talk about whether or not the economy is working for every community and every person and every family in the state of Florida, because I don't think my Republican friends can acknowledge that their plan is working. There are people being left behind. So if you want to talk about capitalism, sure, but we're for fair capitalism. We're here to make sure you have access to affordable housing and safe housing and health care, and if you lose your job, there's going to be a safety net that catches you before you hit the pavement. We can embrace capitalism but say the economy should work for everybody. The second value is the government actually has a role and responsibility in our lives. It's our government. We pay for it. It should be lean and it should be efficient and it shouldn't waste a dime. But in a time where DOJ and others in government are attacking federal and state services, we've got to stand up and say, no, we have paid for these services and we expect these services for our seniors, for our veterans, for our storm victims. Imagine this community. If my Republican friends had their way, imagine this community hit by a hurricane, but we don't have the benefit of storm response. The government has a role in providing for excellence in public education for our families. Public education has been under attack for 20 years. It is a moral wrong that our teachers are paid last in the nation. Our teachers are paid last in the nation. It's a moral wrong. I don't care what registration's on your voting card. We're the third largest state in the country. We have a booming economy and we pay our teachers dead last. Dead last. It's a retention and recruitment problem, but it's a respect issue and it's leaving kids behind and insulting some of the most incredible educators in this state. Our government has a responsibility and a role in providing for safe communities. Safe communities. It's maybe the preeminent role of government is to provide for our collective security. So Democrats, we need to be a party that recognizes we should be tough on crime. We should be tough on crime. We need safe communities. But as I'll talk about in a little bit, I'm afraid my Republican colleagues aren't fighting crime, they're fighting communities. They're fighting our black and brown communities looking for crime. They're fighting our immigrant communities looking for crime. You know who can tell you best how to create safe communities? It's local law enforcement leadership. They know best how to create safe communities. The job of our government, of our state, and of our municipality is to give them the resources to create safe communities. In some communities, it may be guns, it may be drugs, it may be gang violence. In some, it may be immigration. But let local law enforcement decide how to do that. The governor does not know what our greatest threat is to safe communities. Local law enforcement does. Trust them. Because who are the voices raising the greatest amount of concern in this environment where our governor and our president are suggesting we have to rush into our immigrant communities? It's local law enforcement. It's local law enforcement saying, I'm not sure we should sign the ICE agreements because I'm not sure I want to move my manpower and resources in that direction when we don't need it. And oh, by the way, if these agreements don't allow for due process, guess what? These are real conversations. Local sheriffs, local chiefs are saying, I'm not going to engage in the detention of an individual under this ICE agreement. We'll provide perimeter security around a community. We'll provide transport. But we're going to hold that person for 1 hour, and if the feds aren't there to pick them up, we're letting them go. We're not touching them because we're not violating individual due process rights. Those are the conversations. But that does not mean we should not be tough on crime and seen as tough on crime. We'll talk a little bit about that. The third value is very simple, and it's heartbreaking that we're at a place in Florida history where this is controversial, but we should be a state, we should be a country, and I have found a home in a Democratic Party that knows and believes with conviction that everybody should be welcomed and empowered and celebrated, regardless of the color of your skin, where you were born, who you love, or who you worship. That's a value. That's a value. These aren't political statements. These aren't partisan statements. The economy should work for everybody. We are a society. We are a collective society that should ensure the economy is providing opportunity for everybody. As a collective society who is funding a government, we should recognize and insist that our government provides services to us. And yes, we should be a place that honors the ideals of our Constitution, even when we've fallen short in centuries past, that recognizes in this moment we should make sure that everybody is welcome and empowered and celebrated. That is not today's Florida. That is not today's Florida. Why are Laura and I considering whether to raise our kids here? Because that's not today's Florida. But in this moment, we're not the only family that knows that. You're in this room because you know that as well. The polls in this race have this race already tied up because all of Floridians know this is the moment for change. We've gone too far. So we lead with our values. We lead with our values. What does it look like then to apply those values to policies? I won't put you to sleep talking about policies. I could do that. Bill Clinton once gave, I think, an hour-and-a-half State of the Union address. He went through 109 policies. I don't think that record was broken until the current president. But I don't think there's a single policy in that speech. Let's just hit on a couple things, because I do think it's important to know that our policies contrast with Republican leaders. And I'm going to say this respectfully. They are just ideologically incapable of accepting what I'm about to talk about for policy solutions. That's okay. That's their position. But after 30 years, they've created this environment we're in, and so we're going to talk about some different policies. Let's start with access to housing, the cost of housing for renters and retirees and homeowners. Folks, our private homeowners insurance market has collapsed and it's not coming back. It's not coming back. It's being held together by popsicle sticks and Band-Aids. You're paying 2 or 3 times what you were paying before. Maybe you're seeing a 5% savings one year, a 10% increase the next year. There is not an affordable homeowners insurance market capable of affordably covering natural disaster risks. We've ignored climate science and climate change for too long, and the cost of covering natural disasters has made home ownership harder and harder and harder. That's true in Florida, where we have hurricanes, in Texas, where you have hurricanes and flooding, in California, where you have wildfires, Tornado Alley. The cost of covering natural disasters is too high. I think we need a state catastrophic fund to finally remove hurricane and natural disaster coverage from the private market altogether. It will cut homeowners insurance by 50, 60, 70% in some cases. Go to your agent and price it. A hurricane or a insurance policy that's called X-Wind, meaning no hurricane coverage, just cover the traditional perils of a tree breaking, of a pipe bursting, of a slip and fall. Your rates come down by 60 or 70%. Now listen, one of the things I love about being a Democrat is I get to accept math and data and science and public health and vaccines and academia and all the things that have contributed to human progress. So yes, I will be a candidate that says we have to fund the CAT fund. We have to talk about revenue, but guess what? One of the ways our private homeowners insurance is being held together is we allow our insurance companies to ship their profits out of state and keep their losses here. So they avoid taxes on their profits. They pay their CEOs $25, $50 million. They decline 50% of coverage claims after a storm. They ship their profits out of state. They reap the rewards and they leave us with the losses. That's the current market. But Republicans are doing it because it's the only way they can keep companies here. We don't have the largest companies, insurance companies in the state because they're not about to touch this system. So we bring in undercapitalized firms, we rig the system for a few years until the big storm hits and they leave. A state CAT fund, if we were to tax insurance and other corporate profits in the state of Florida, we could generate $3 billion a year into that fund. I actually think we should look at our tourist development tax dollars, not to reduce tourism in this state. We're going to make sure it's growing, but we have out-of-state money coming into this state every day. And what we currently use it on is more tourism, building more convention centers, advertising more tourism. Maybe we should put Florida's families first and say, we need to use some of our tourist revenue for an insurance catastrophic fund, or something I'll talk about in a minute, public education. Look, access to housing is one of the greatest concerns when it comes to this affordability crisis. We could use the CAT fund, tie it to industrial, commercial, and rental properties, pass those savings through to renters as well. We could move natural disaster coverage for the car insurance market into a CAT fund, but we should commit discretionary money each year for more workforce and affordable housing. Tie it to certain income limits or certain industries or professions. Distance to work. That's a discretionary budget item we could do every year, spend more on supply and on workforce housing. We could address the affordability crisis by actually recognizing that climate science is real and recognize it in the state of Florida for the first time in decades and say, maybe we should incorporate more clean and renewable and new energies into our utility system in the state of Florida. It would drive down the rates of every utility payer and would also provide for stewardship of the environment. There's a lot we can do on the economy that is policy-driven. Republicans won't do it because they're ideologically opposed to it. Republicans think a state catastrophic fund for insurance is socialism. I just think it's cheaper insurance. And look, they want to repeal all property taxes in Tallahassee. And I would tell you this, I do think that defunds police, defunds education, defunds safe community, defunds transportation, defunds clean water. But let's see what they come up with. I mean that. I've been a Republican. Republican math rarely works. It rarely works. But let's not oppose something we haven't seen. That's what's wrong with our politics right now. Maybe they're going to propose something at the end of the day that makes sense, and if so, let's join them and support it. But if it actually doesn't make sense, and it runs antithetical to the values we need and the services we need, then we should have a proposal. I do think we need first-time home buyer tax relief. Many folks in this room benefit from Save Our Homes and portability because 25 years ago, during the run-up of the 2000s, the issue was longtime homeowners couldn't stay in their home because the value of those homes got to be too great. So we came up, rightly, correctly, with Save Our Homes and portability. Today we have the inverted problem. First-time home buyers who buy that home from you, who's had that Save Our Homes for 20 years, their tax bill jumps by 200, 300, 400%. You bring in homeowners insurance, and they're spending more each month on taxes and insurance than on their note. There's a reason young people are saying, I can't afford to buy a home or live in a home. But all of this has to be constructed in a way that passes through to renters as well. Those are policy decisions. Look, government has a responsibility in our lives, a second value. I'm going to hit two, maybe a third thing, because I do something every consultant tells me not to do. I talk about guns in the state of Florida. We'll get there. But let's start with public education. Public education has been under attack for 20 years now in the state of Florida, and it's wrong. We need a 10-year renaissance in funding for public education in the state of Florida. A 10-year renaissance. Both to pay teachers not 3% more, but 30% more. 30% more. Move them into the top half. We can't do that on day one. If politicians could deliver promises on day one, the Ukraine war would be over. But we can set about on day one and say, let's do 10% this year, 10% the next year, 10% the third year, whatever that looks like, but let's commit to paying teachers more, to retaining and rewarding teachers, and ultimately allowing greater value for our students when we do that. But we also need to fund our public school infrastructure so that Florida's families want to rush into our public school environments. Some communities have wonderful, beautiful public schools. Some communities have voted to tax themselves more to put into public education. But still today, there are some public schools that are 60, 70, 80 years old with portables and trailers in the back with leaky window air conditioners, using them as a classroom, with a dusty field under an oak tree for a playground. Florida's families in a choice environment are never going to choose that school because our choice environment isn't real choice, it's a false choice. We've underfunded and starved public education, and we've sent all the state money into choice, voucher, and charter schools that look good and feel good because they're beautiful environments with ballistic glass, modern air conditioning, a security officer, small classrooms. Of course, Florida's families are going to race into that environment. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Jeb Bush, 25 years ago, introduced us to school choice by rightly pointing out some failing public schools, and said, look, while we figure out how to save these public schools, your family should be able to go somewhere else. And it worked. It worked because Republicans were looking out for the kids and the families in that moment. Well, this has been turned on its head now 25 years later under universal vouchers with no rules. Here's why. Our argument now is the same as Jeb's 25 years ago. Your choice schools, your charter schools, your voucher schools are leaving your kids behind. And if we don't do something about it over the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, our voucher schools and choice schools are going to undereducate and leave Florida's children behind and unprepared for the world. And here's why. Here's why. If your child goes to a choice school, a voucher school today, and they can't read in first grade, if the school wants to, they can kick them out. They can kick them out. They don't have to teach the kid to read. The school does not have to teach the kid to read. They don't have to provide an individualized education program, an IEP. They don't have to do that. If your child is on the spectrum or has a disability, they don't have to accept that kid. They don't have to educate that kid. If your child in a voucher, charter, or choice school wants access to excellence in academics, wants to take trigonometry in 10th grade, or wants to pursue the arts or pursue the trades, they don't have to do it. They're taking the state money. They're taking that family's allocation of money. But they're not educating your kids. They're leaving your kids behind. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's a little different. I don't think we should just attack the choice program. If you talk to a lot of public educators and administrators, they'll tell you choice is here to stay. Florida's families support it by 65 or 70% because it's been sold as freedom. And freedom's a pretty powerful drug. Our job is to educate those families who want choice and let them know that the choice schools are leaving your kids behind. Your kids are not going to be qualified and capable if they follow through with a choice program that doesn't have services and standards. So what do? We have a 10-year renaissance in public education. We create an environment where Florida's families want to rush into the public education system again. And then we say if you are a choice or charter or voucher school that wants to provide education services to Florida's kids, then you're going to provide the same services, the same standards, the same academics, and equip our kids the same way that our public schools do. I think that'll constrict 80 to 90% of our voucher schools. If they want to meet those standards, God bless you, thank you. You can be an education partner to Florida's families. But if you're not going to meet those standards, you can keep opening your school, but you can't use state money. We also need to bring back means testing. We should bring back means testing. In the first year of universal choice, 70% of families who received the voucher were already enrolled in private school. This is no longer about helping families in financial need. And here's the worst part. So we've abandoned the families with actual financial need. And now you take your voucher to a school, and the school's allowed to charge you in addition to the voucher. So thank you for the $8,000 voucher. Now we're going to charge you an extra $5,000 or $6,000. Our choice system is broken. It is broken. But the argument for us, in my opinion, is not for us to fight against choice, but it's to fight for Florida's families and to say your kids are being left behind by Florida's choice program. And as Democrats, we're going to lead a coalition to stand up for your family and your kids. That's the way we do this. The second area I talk about in government providing services is in providing for safe communities. I've spoken to that. I won't repeat all of it. But I will tell you, I think it is an opportunity for Democrats to talk about how we provide for safe communities. It means getting the back of local law enforcement, not telling them how to do their job. Look, when I was in Congress, I actually introduced something called the Thin Blue Line Act that said if someone assaults a police officer, they're eligible for enhanced penalties. I couldn't get my own team to go along with that at that point. It was later picked up and signed into law by this president. I don't back away from that. We should stand up for law enforcement, and we should be a party, and I should be a governor that's tough on crime. But we also know that sometimes being tough on crime means investing in youth programs. It also means recognizing the racial disparity in criminal justice that has burdened too many communities for decades. That every outcome in a courtroom isn't necessarily always accurate. We can be a party that recognizes we're going to be tough on crime, but we're not going to fight communities. We're going to give people second chances, and we're going to get the back of law enforcement. That's not a Republican or Democratic thing. Republicans want to play politics when it comes to fighting crime in the law enforcement community. Let's just get down to the substance. There is a higher rate, a higher propensity statistically of property and violent crimes in our native-born communities than in our immigrant communities. Those are the stats. Those are the facts. Trust local law enforcement to know how to keep communities safe. But you know what? If someone breaks the law in the state of Florida, whether you were born here, whether you immigrated here from Cuba or Venezuela or Pennsylvania or Ohio or New York, or whether you're a Tallahassee politician who steals $10 million from the Medicaid program, who your Republican colleagues in Tallahassee have suggested a crime was likely committed. Yes, we should be a party that's tough on crime and says if you break the law, we're going to hold you accountable. Look, I told you the issue that consultants always tell me not to talk about, and I don't care. I don't care. We have to be a state, and the government has a responsibility to reduce gun violence in the state of Florida. We have to. We have to. Look, change is part of my story. Some of you have followed me. I was a Republican in Congress. I was never a good enough Republican for their team. The Democrats didn't need me and didn't want me. I understand that. I came in with the basic, posture of the Second Amendment. I was never an NRA person. We weren't really a gun family, but I was a conservative, right-of-center, Bush 41 Republican who kind of defended that position. But when I started serving and I started to realize we have a responsibility to respond to gun violence, to mass shootings, to school shootings, to the Pulse nightclub shooting, and I realized on my side of the aisle the answer was whispers and hide and go away and let's just wait them out. That's a moral wrong. That is wrong. Every mass shooting has a fail point. Every mass shooting has a fail point. I'm going to use my words maybe a little carefully, but I know our kids are here. Every mass shooting has a fail point. In Las Vegas, where 500 people were shot, it was a bump stock. In the Pulse nightclub, it was no fly, no buy. A gentleman who, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, but a person who wasn't allowed to fly on a plane was able to buy an assault weapon. In many cases with school shootings, it's storage, family storage issues, where we rarely, particularly in the state of Florida, rarely do we ever hold a parent accountable for leaving a firearm not properly stored. There's always a fail point. And because there's always a fail point, there's always a solution. There's always a solution. We need comprehensive and universal background checks in the state of Florida, and we don't have them, and don't let anybody tell you we do. We don't. We have a criminal conviction check in the state of Florida. But I'm going to give you a scenario that falls through the cracks. Domestic violence. Forgive me for a little bit of the scenario. A husband assaulting his wife. Law enforcement's called. The spouse decides not to provide a victim statement. The prosecutor decides not to pursue the case. Perhaps all for understandable reasons on behalf of that victim. The second time it happens, the same thing. Law enforcement shows up. No victim statement, not enough evidence, no charges pursued or charges dropped. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, that husband goes down to Walmart, buys a gun, goes home and kills his wife. Because nothing in the background check, absent a red flag from another family member, nothing in the background check allows that Walmart clerk to know that that person had been the subject of an investigation by law enforcement for domestic violence 5 times. Nothing that I would propose, and nobody in this race, I promise you, is going to offer or try to take a firearm from a law-abiding citizen. I'm not, but I am trying to take it away from a wife-beating murderer. And my question for my Republican friends is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to stop that violence? Because I haven't heard anything. Every school shooting, there's a fail point. And every time, Republicans wish it away and wait it out and just hope we forget. I was touring public schools in Seminole County, and in every single classroom of an elementary school, the carpet is this color, and there's one corner where they have red carpet. And the drill is, as soon as the alarm goes off, everybody rush to the red carpet because it keeps them out of the line of sight. That's wrong. The answer is not red carpet. The answer is comprehensive and universal background checks. The answer is storage requirements and enforcement against adults who fail to do that. And yes, I think we should consider licensing and registration and insurance as well if it'll save a kid's life. And I also don't talk about guns because it makes me go long. But we're going to talk about guns in this race. The last value is we should be a place where everyone's celebrated and welcomed and lifted up. It's very simple. On day one of a new governor, that means the culture wars are over. The culture wars are over. We fight for the democracy and franchise and suffrage of everybody. We let teachers teach. We take the handcuffs off. We bring the school books back. We recognize that doctors and families and parents and spouses and individuals know best about their own health care decisions, and we should keep the politicians out of a doctor's office. We should keep the politicians out of your bedroom and out of your libraries. Look, one of the things you can do as governor is start to set about reviewing and replacing virtually all of Ron DeSantis' appointees. Starting with our state university system. Return to places of leadership, administrators who understand how to pursue academic excellence in an environment that prepares students, that understands our campuses do not need ideological leaders, they need academic administrators. Bring back subject matter experts. Recognize that diversity is not an attack on meritocracy, it's an improvement of meritocracy. It increases our meritocracy. I am not going to surround myself by people who are unqualified, but I am going to surround myself by people who ensure that state leadership looks like our state, because it makes us stronger and better. My perspective is from my community. A white Southern Baptist preacher's kid who today my children are born into a neighborhood with more opportunities than the kids born 5 miles north of me. I know that. So I want leaders from the community 5 miles north of me to be a part of this coalition so that we can make decisions better. From the immigrant communities down in South Florida, for people of different faiths or no faiths, whatever it might be, diversity strengthens the meritocracy in our state. It makes us stronger and a better state. And most importantly, throw all policies out the window, it is the way we show our youth opportunity, because you can't be what you can't see. And if a young person of color can't look up to see a Supreme Court justice of color, if a young LGBTQ plus youth can't look up and see somebody that looks like them in leadership, they can't be what they can't see. We pay it forward to the next generation. How are we going to win? I'm going to tell you how we're going to win. We're in the midst of a dramatic change environment nationally. Democrats are outperforming by 15 or 16 points already because people are screaming for change. Our congressional special elections in Florida outperformed by 15 or 16 points. Our state legislative races north of Orlando just outperformed by 21 points and 15 points. This state is screaming for change. But as I mentioned, we accept math. There are over 1 million more registered Republicans in this state than there are Democrats, and we're not closing that gap this cycle. We're going to work hard. Local parties are going to work hard on it. We can't wish away that delta and that gap. But you don't have to be a Democrat to vote for a Democratic governor. You can be a Republican and you can be an independent and vote for a Democratic governor. So how do we give those voters permission to do so? We build a coalition that amplifies the values I discussed, that tether together the youngest, most progressive Democrat with the last blue dog standing. But we amplify those values in communities to voters who have yet to hear our message, where we have failed to perform in the past. We have to sit in our faith communities and say, look, I think our values better reflect the teachings of faith, all faiths, the basics, love, joy, dignity, respect, opportunity. We have to sit with the gun community and say, yes, I'm going to pursue aggressive gun violence prevention legislation, but I'm not going to take your gun away, and when we succeed, we're going to save your grandkids just like we're going to save ours. We have to go to the agriculture community and say, your labor markets are tight, your costs are up because this governor is fighting immigration. He's not fighting crime. We need to take our message. These values are not political values. They are values that are bigger than any one party. And when we do that, we build a coalition that closes the gap. We build a coalition where everybody can look at this race and say, you know, every time that this campaign, that this candidate has opened their mouth, they're talking about my insurance, they're talking about my communities, they're talking about educating my kids, and they're talking about creating a Florida where my kids and grandkids will want to stay. That is how you get an Andy Beshear in Kentucky. That is how you get a Steve Bullock in Montana. That is how you get a David Jolly in Florida. We build that coalition. I'm going to close with this and we'll go to questions. It requires each of us to do a lot of hard work. Each of us to do a lot of hard work. Our two kids, you haven't met them. Kids are always different, right? You come out of the same womb. They're dramatically different. I'm not sure which one I'm responsible for and which one's Laura's responsible for. Our 6-year-old Cece is going to be just fine in life. We're going to set up the guardrails, boom, 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 she'll ping pong off and whew, not look back. Teddy's already told his mom he's not leaving the house. I was reading to Cece one night about a month or so ago, and as I mentioned, we haven't involved them a lot. I think we had made the decision about running for governor months before the kids were really exposed to that decision. I was reading to Cece one night, and she got a little upset. Tears were flowing, and she said, "Dad, I don't want you to run for governor." That's a hard spot, right? If there's one person in your life that can convince you to do something or not, it's that special child in your life, whether it's your kid or grandkid or neighbor kid or whomever it might be. Two things came to me in that moment. The first one is just the raw indictment of where we are as a country right now. At 6 years old, I didn't look at American politics and think it was mean and nasty, and I didn't want our family to be a part of it. I was excited by it. I was curious what my parents thought about it. I wanted to learn about it. But at 6 years old, our daughter was saying, "I don't want anything to do with politics. It's ugly, it's divisive. I don't want our family involved in it." That's an indictment of where we are. I wish I could tell you that one election or one candidate heals the nation or the state. I don't think so. I don't think so. That's a point of deep reflection for Laura and I. The commitment to run for governor while struggling with whether or not one election or one candidate can actually fix all that ails us. I'm not sure that's the case, but I do know there's the opportunity for progress in a single race. And so, well, the first thing that I recognized in that moment was the indictment. The second thing was, and I just believe this was through providence, my personal faith, the words I found to respond to her were, I said, "Sweetie, when you have a chance to change the world, you take it. You take it. You don't know how it's going to turn out. None of us know how it's going to turn out. But when you have a chance to change the world, you step out and you do your part. You do what's within reach. You step into that path. You commit to pursuing changing the world." And what is remarkable in this moment, what we have already seen over the last 6 months since the last election, is that people are stepping out and doing what's within reach. And for everybody, that's something different. For many of you in the room today, showing up today is what's within reach. Going to the No Kings rally is what's within reach. For some, it's just promising and pledging to vote next November. Life is too hard. The time with your kids, you just got to promise to show up to vote. For others, it is the opportunity to register someone else to vote. For some, what's within reach is checking your voter registration status. But we all have to do just what's within reach. And what we are seeing in this moment is that as Americans and as people across Florida are doing what's within reach, as we're doing what's within reach, we are turning elections around. We are electing Democratic candidates, but more importantly, we are electing candidates on the values that I have been mentioning. We are electing people who say, "I'm done with all the partisan stuff. I just want to know that our society and our state and our country returns to a place where the economy does work for everybody, where the government actually provides services in a place where everybody's welcome." We are building a coalition that is going to do something remarkable next November, remarkable. When we all do what's within reach, I promise you next November what the story is going to be. The story is not going to be that this guy named David Jolly just won the governorship in the state of Florida. That is not going to be the story. The story is going to be that Florida's voters created a new political coalition led by the Democratic Party, amplifying Democratic values, but big enough to bring in independents and Republicans. That Florida's voters have created a political coalition the country has not seen in decades, and in the home of MAGA, where the president lives and where our governor has had a tighter grip on Republican politics than anybody we've seen in decades, in that place, in the deep red state of Florida, the story next November is that Florida's voters created a coalition that demanded change. And when we do that, I get to say to my daughter and to my son, and you get to say to your kids and your grandkids and your neighbor and your spouse, you get to turn to them and say what I'm going to get to say to her, which is, sweetheart, we just changed the world. That's what this is about. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll let somebody else organize Q&A because I'll mess it up.
Take a drink.
Yeah.
Where can we get one of those bugs?
We got to raise a little more money. Thank you. Yes, sir.
David, good afternoon. First thing I want to do is just thank you for putting yourself out there and giving this state an opportunity for some reasonable governance for a change.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And I didn't really have a question here when I came, but then I looked around at the demographics of the room, and it occurred to me,
Yeah.
do you have any strategies to get some younger people out?
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's a great question. I do think so. We covered the values. I think our values are right for young voters, and frankly, young voters are very similar to independent voters. They're cynical. They don't have reason to believe. They kind of reject the left-right spectrum. They just know we have big problems, and they want to see big solutions to them. So I do think on the values, the reason I frame all my conversations around these values is I think it's inclusive of the youngest voter. But how do we engage them? How do we activate them? So that moves to techniques and strategies. So one thing we have to do, one thing I'm doing in this race, is doing what Lawton Chiles did in 1970. We are going everywhere. We are going into every community. If I find a young person who says, what can you do for me? I grab them and I say, here's my cell number. Call me, text me, be a part of this campaign, because they're going to turn hearts and minds in their communities long before I ever will. Right? I wish I was cool. I'm not cool. I'm a 52-year-old white guy with salt and pepper hair, and I'm not cool, and putting me on TikTok's going to make me look weird, not cool. But we've got to reach them. So one of the things I'm going to do, and this is a broader kind of strategic conversation, I want to make this race about others, not about me. I want this race to be about lifting up your voice, not raising mine. And so for the young person, I think where we turn the corner, and this is true of every community, where we turn the corner is when they get to see themselves in the campaign. So let's stick with young people just for a second. I think what you're going to see us do, even on social media, is hand over the keys to younger people. So I have, not just to start typing for me on my account, I actually mean use their accounts. So I'm in the process of trying to find 10 or 15 people from all walks of life. There's a 28-year public school teacher who just has a great online community presence. I don't care if it's a lot of followers or a little, but people who are regularly engaged in communities. And I'm agreeing to sit with each one of these people 3-4 times a week for 30 seconds, 60 seconds on their accounts. They're telling the story. We're driving people to their accounts, not to mine. We're making this race about them. But that's true across all demographics in this race. I want to create a coalition where people see themselves My ethos with how I want to run this campaign is not to lead out front, but to lead shoulder to shoulder. And that includes with the youngest voter in the room. We've got to create trust. I think our values are right. I think our positions are right. We've got to create trust. And when everybody says meet voters where they're at, we do have to do that. And with young people, that looks and feels a lot different than all of us getting in our cars and coming here today. You bet. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My question is, right now we have a supermajority in the Florida House and the Florida Senate.
Yeah.
So as governor, how do you propose to put through the legislation to perhaps bring to fruition some of the values that you have expressed here today?
Yeah, great question. So, as I mentioned, one of the first things you get to do is actually through the appointment process. So, I will tell you, if you want to return to science and public health, one thing I can do on my first day in office is fire the Surgeon General of the state of Florida. I don't need the legislature to do that. I can stop the attack on home rule. If a community wants to paint murals to recognize the community, God bless you, go do it. The governor doesn't need to interfere. We get to appoint an education commissioner that instead of attacking teachers and school boards actually gets their back and finds out how to advocate for more resources for our classrooms. That's all through the appointment process. That's all through new leadership. Now, I will say when it comes to working with the legislature, I am optimistic about this. I'm not naive, but I am optimistic. I do think there's a good shot if Florida's voters elect a Democratic governor, if Republicans lose their supermajority. I do. I think there are a few races that flip in that environment that help us reduce the supermajority. Now, gerrymandering is a real thing, and so we'll have to see. But the first thing I'm going to do is invite Republicans to the governor's mansion and say, how do we not waste the next 4 years for Florida? Where can we work together? Look, Don Gates in the Panhandle, a rabid Republican, is one of the greatest advocates for utility reform. Let's work together. Where Senator Albritton, the state Senate Republican president, wanted $200 million for a rural renaissance in Florida for last-mile corridors in our most impoverished counties for healthcare and education and technology. Let's work with him to make it $300 million. I think there's a lot that can get done, but on the issues that are really a matter of values and contrasts, a state catastrophic fund, fighting for reproductive freedom in the language of Amendment 4, fighting for public education. If Florida's voters elect a Democratic governor for the first time in 30 years, the legislature has to worry less about the governor than they do their voters. Their voters. The power dynamic, if we look around the corner after a Democratic governor is elected in Florida, that power dynamic is very different. We get to play offense and say to the Republican legislature, you tell voters why you're against reducing gun violence, or you tell voters why you're against the state catastrophic fund, or you tell voters why you're against generational property tax relief. I do think that environment is one in which we can get a lot done. Look, a state catastrophic fund could be 5 years off, but we can start by doing something right away. Jeb Bush and Republicans have created a hurricane fund that bails out insurance companies. There's $8 billion in it. They don't call that socialism. So let's use their platform. They built it. Now, how do we identify revenue through tourist development tax dollars to fund that up to $30 to $35 to $40 billion? And once we get there, take out reinsurance on the world stage and provide hurricane coverage from the state and remove it from the private market? I think we have an opportunity to move Republicans in that direction. I'm not going to promise everything happens on day one, but I am very optimistic when Florida's voters demand change. Our Republican friends are going to have to play a little ball. And by the way, for the first time since '98, they'll have to deal with a Democratic governor with a line item veto. So we got a little leverage. Yes.
You said you can't be what you can't see. Is that right?
That's right.
But we don't have slavery. We don't have a caste system. We keep telling ourselves here in the United States. So somebody has to go first. You can't tell a trans kid you can't be something just because nobody else has done it first.
Sure.
Okay. Thank
No,
you.
I agree. Well, let me think. I think I understand the spirit of where you're going with this. I think, and if not, please correct me. But I think it is important that we create an inclusive environment for everyone, so that first person who is leading, that becomes the person, right? You know who said you can't be what you can't see? I believe she was the first black female astronaut. Nobody had done it before. Nobody had done it before. And she said you can't be what you can't see. In terms of the young trans kid, we need to embrace our trans community so that that young person, so that first person can emerge into leadership or can be recognized with equity and dignity so the young person can see that. This is an area, and I want to ask for grace if I get language wrong. Okay, because I understand words are received differently, and I'm going to ask for grace if I get language wrong. I hope you'll understand the spirit with where I'm going with this. A member of the Biden family once told me, Joe Biden, at his age and his background, is the last person that could fully understand the emerging trans community publicly. But he's the first person to tell you that he's going to fight for the dignity and rights of everybody, and he's going to stand up to the bully who's trying to punch down at any community. And he's the first person who's willing to create an inclusive environment for everyone. For me, my emergence into this conversation happened when I was sitting atop our pool screen, replacing some screens. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I should not have had my cell phone, and I should not have answered it. But I did, because I got a phone call from somebody I had not heard from in 15 years. And I hardly knew him 15 years prior, and it was really odd. I didn't know if this person was still on the earth or not. And he said, I'm calling because I'm calling desperately everybody I know with a voice. This is when I was still doing MSNBC work. He said, our grandchild is trans, and for years we worked with our grandchild through suicidal ideations, through running away. We finally were able to get them the community and the care that they deserved and they needed. They went through counseling, they were in gender-affirming care, and now that grandchild is set to be valedictorian of the class, is the band marshal, and has more friends than anybody in the community. But the reason he was calling me was because Tallahassee was about to pass the legislation that they ultimately did. And he said, if this happens, the doctor will get thrown in jail for continuing to provide care, and my parents will have the child removed from home. And as the grandfather, what I'm faced with is actually getting the drugs or the care from out of state because I'm willing to go to prison for my grandchild. That conversation allowed me to step into his lived experience and better understand what it meant to become an ally and to fight for, in this case, the trans community. And so I went on TV about an hour later with one of my best friends in TV and politics and life, Nicole Wallace, and I said, Nicole, I got a story to tell you. And I shared that story hoping that someone else would hear it the way I heard it from the grandfather. I believe I understand the spirit of your question. You can't be what you can't see, but sometimes that first generation of change too often is quieted by leaders, and we need leaders who embrace it and create platforms for it.
And I now have a greater understanding of how you feel, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
My husband and I started supporting you when you had the town halls, when you were congressman, and you listened to the people. And I told the gals when we were coming down, my husband and I are thrilled you're running for governor.
Thank you.
You know how to run a town hall, you know how to be a governor, you know how to be a leader. My question is, what are we going to do if there are troops when we want to go vote?
Yeah. I don't know that I have an answer to that. And the reason I say that is I probably share the worry of many people in this room that this might be getting away from us in real time. I do. Can we make it to the next election, and can the nation speak with a loud enough voice at the ballot box where we can make that incremental change that is available to us. In some of the blue states where we're seeing J.B. Pritzker stand up, for instance, we should see that. We should see that. Where we're seeing Gavin Newsom very responsibly say, if the red states are going to gerrymander, we're going to gerrymander too. But understand, Gavin Newsom put a sunset on their gerrymandering. Only to 2030. It was the responsible way to say, democracy's under attack and we've got to fight back, but we're at least going to try to attend to some of the norms and institutions. My fear is the other side of the aisle isn't. The scenario of troops, I don't know in a red state, because I think we know what Ron DeSantis, how he would handle that if that happened. But what I will tell you when it comes to the integrity of the ballot box, there are a couple things we can do. Trust our supervisors of election. Our local supervisors, Republican or Democrat, are on the front lines of the integrity of elections, and it usually it is never corrupted until it hits the politicians somewhere up above them. Work with, trust your supervisors. Two, a lot of the litigation organizations are actually doing great work and making progress. We're not winning them all, but the courts are providing some temperance to what is being done. But the last thing I'll tell you that is within reach when it comes to the ballot box next November is we've just got to win by more. We got to win by a lot more. If we win this race by 3, 4, 5 points, there's no corrupting this race. There's no taking it away. There's not. If we win this race by 300 votes, I'm afraid of what happens. And so what's within reach? Work with your supervisors. If it's worth supporting or if you're interested, look at some of the litigation groups, but let's get out there and hustle and win this race by a lot. That's the way to do it.
I'd like to start off by saying I am not an anti-Second Amendment type of person, but my anxiety of the week is now the open carry in Publix.
Yeah.
And I'll take my response at my seat if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Look, this is another area where some of the greatest voices of concern come from law enforcement leadership. Pinellas County is a very conservative Republican sheriff who's been a fantastic sheriff, led the Parkland reform package because he was willing to work towards greater gun safety. And I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't know what he has said publicly, but I do know his advocacy efforts against open carry are known, because you can't tell the good guys and the bad guys in some scenarios, right? Here's the one thing that I pledge to you I'm going to try to do, and we're going to test some. Look, I don't mean this as a broad brush, but there are very specific incidences I think we could all point to. I do think that between the president and our governor, they pick and choose which parts of the law or the Constitution they want to apply, and they violate other parts without care or concern. That's true of our governor. So I'm not a governor who is going to repeat their failures by breaking any laws. And I'm not going to violate the Constitution, but I'm going to test something within the Florida Constitution if I have the opportunity to be the next governor. Right now, we entrust our elected Attorney General to litigate or lay down on claims on behalf of the people of Florida. He could appeal the open carry decision. Ashley Moody did. As a Republican, she didn't want it. This Attorney General has said, welcome to open carry. He still has the opportunity to appeal, but he won't. This has not been done before, but I intend to try to use the office of the governor to litigate claims on behalf of the people of Florida. To enter into the courtroom on behalf of the people of Florida. And if that means creating cases where our Attorney General and our governor are on other sides of the issue, let's see what happens. I do think there's a justiciable claim still open for us on open carry, and I'm going to do everything I can to fight back against it. Yeah.
Hi, I want to start by sharing something that has always been very important to me. It's called a new idea. There's no new ideas under the sun, but there's none so powerful as one whose time has come. And I hope that our time has come.
That's right.
And secondly, this is an idea. Have you thought to reach out to the colleges to get these students, the young people? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's your market right there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I want to give credit to a lot of good work that's being done on our colleges, and a lot of it's being done through the leadership of your local county parties, your Democratic county parties. Orange County Democratic Executive Committee has done incredible work at voter registration at University of Central Florida, like breaking records. So there is a lot of work being done. I don't want to belabor this too much. There's two things. I'm going to share with you the challenge and a little bit of a silver lining. Democrats in Florida have been abandoned financially for a long time by the national party. There are not a lot of resources for local parties and local organizations to do the outreach. We're relying on a lot of committed volunteers to do it, many of whom are in this room. And so we do have a lack of resources that we have to be able to fix. Now, I will tell you, I believe strongly, I really do, part of the theory of this case is when a statewide Democratic candidate in Florida by next spring is showing this race within reach or a toss-up like it is now. I've had conversations with the national donor community, with the chair of the DNC, and I've told them, I understand you don't want to come in now, but just watch us move the polls. It was 16 points last November, now it's a tie. You watch us as Floridians continue to move the polls and show this race is within reach, and then we're going to ask for your financial help to come in. When we have financial help, we can do a lot more. We can reach a lot more communities. We can do more on the college campuses, but we don't have to wait for that to get started. I met a young man in Tallahassee 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I did this thing with him. Here's my cell phone number. You give me your cell phone number. How can I help you? How can I speak for you? How can you get involved? He went home, and just about 5 days ago, without permission, by the way, he started Youth for Jolly. On his own. Go to his Twitter account and follow it. Let's give the guy 100 followers tonight. He created Youth for Jolly. He posted a video last night where he says, I'm doing this. We're reaching every college campus. We're going to open chapters. We want to be in every county, and we're starting now. This is a young person on his own who's done it. So where we lack financial resources, we at least have the time resources to say, how do we help you? How can we amplify you? How can we be supportive? One way we can help that young guy today, go on Twitter and look for Youth for Jolly and follow it. Now, he's going to say, why'd all these retirees just follow my account? But let's give him a little push. Yeah.
Thank you, David, for honoring with your presence. My name is Ram Marisich. I was a Republican before I became a Democrat, kind of like you. I had my moment. I came to Jesus, basically. My children also were brought up as Republicans, and now they think that I'm senile. But I'm reassured with people like you coming up that we have some better chance to do it and regain control in this country. The ball game, I'm a former chair of the Democratic Party here, by the way. The ball game, as I see it, is really in Miami-Dade County, which is very heavily Latin. I hope you learn some Spanish while you before you tackle that one. But we are very happy to have you here. Now, I envision that Miami-Dade is kind of like where the ball game is. Punta Gorda is kind of like a desert. But in 2000, only 6 more voters per precinct will change the course of history. So if the election is very close, you'll be grateful, thankful that you came to visit us because we may make the difference.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I will admit I have Babel on my cell phone, for those of you who followed it. Asequibilidad is affordability. Vivienda is housing. Escuela is school. I cannot speak it well, but I'm learning vocabulary at least. Give me another 6 months and I'll try. I will tell you the opportunity we have in South Florida. Look, some of this as Democrats, we got to do some soul searching a little bit. We've started to lose our immigrant communities in South Florida. Democrats have. One, because we mistakenly think of every immigrant community as monolithic. And at times, very offensively, think the only issue for the immigrant community is immigration. And at times, we think that they must be on the Democratic side of the issue when it comes to immigration. That's not the case. The affordability crisis is hitting every community. A lot of our immigrant communities actually do want school choice because, based on their own heritage, they might resent the government's involvement in education. So we've got to reach them and explain to them why we're fighting for a better education in the choice environment than their kids are getting, that their kids are going to be left behind. That's a conversation we get to have with every family. Access to health care is a real issue for some of our immigrant communities. And for those who, whether you're in the immigrant community or not, something I haven't said today is we should be a party that recognizes we need strong border security. We need tall walls, but we need wide gates. We also need to be a party that says we also welcome the refugee. We welcome the refugee. The sonnet by Emma Lazarus, we all learned, bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. You know, the line before that is something we never remember. It says, keep, O distant lands, meaning keep, old world, old nations, keep your storied pomp. Keep your rich, your famous, your fabulous. Send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. Your homeless, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Behold, I lift my lamp by the golden door. It is okay to say, we need border security. We need tall walls and wide gates. We should talk about policy. We should talk about a pathway to work. Those are policies. But who are we as a country in our heart and in our soul? We're a country that welcomes the refugee and says you are welcome here and we want to provide you opportunity as you escape your economic conditions or your fear of violence or fear of political persecution. We want to give you a home. We don't want to throw you in jail for trying to be a part of the American dream. There is an opportunity there. Everybody, particularly our immigrant communities, understand broken promises and cruelty. A lot of Trump voters in the immigrant community are thinking today, I didn't think you meant my TPS. And they also see the young child being ripped from the mother's arms. The person whose only offense in the last 15 years has been showing up every day to work without getting a speeding ticket, coming home, putting food on the table, putting their kids in school so that they have the opportunity to pursue the American dream, and pay their taxes, that person is being rounded up. Cruelty is a powerful, powerful motivating force. And I do believe all communities, including our immigrant communities, this cycle see immigration a little differently because they see broken promises and cruelty. But we have to meet them then in that moment and say what we're going to do differently. We also have to recognize that some of the issues are a little different. Look, the immigrant community, other communities of color, school choice is very popular. And the question of reproductive freedom, when it is presented in the context of providing for individual freedom and the right to bodily autonomy, but recognizing the balance of Roe and Casey in protecting the viability of a fetus, that gets you a little better conversation than a lot of our communities that spend their churches and spend their Sundays in conservative church environments. We've got to work through a lot of this with our communities. We're never going to get people's vote or voter registration if we don't win hearts and minds first. We've got to win those hearts and minds before we'll ever get them back. Yes, sir.
Really glad to see you here. You say a lot of great stuff that I've been waiting for somebody to hear. One of the things you talked about with the kids, you touched on a little bit, was climate change. You know, Republicans just don't believe it and stuff like that. I think that could be, our kids and stuff, the young kids are going to have to live with what the decisions they make today. That could be a great opportunity, to get young kids in, is just with climate change alone.
That's right.
And things like that. I've got a son that does solar. He's been doing it for 15 years. And he's always been busy, too busy to get any time off or whatever. He lives up in Clearwater, but usually didn't see him very much. Since Trump has been in office, we have seen him quite a bit. Because
he's in solar.
Yeah, because he does solar now, and Republicans are against solar. They're against windmills. How do you figure? But how do you attack problems like that with solar and just things that
Sure.
DeSantis has done? I've heard on TV and stuff that just with the damage that Trump has done already, it's going to take 15, 20 years to even try to get back to a norm.
Yeah, that's right.
This is
Yeah.
not stuff that's going to happen overnight. It's going to be it's a long process.
Yeah.
And I think with the damage that DeSantis has done with Florida, that's also going to be a long process.
Yeah. So look, I think we start through the appointment process of putting into leadership in our Public Service Commission that regulates our utilities, and then our water district boards, people who accept clean and renewable energies and clean water and the science behind clean air. We don't have any of those leaders in place right now. So we begin to move our state institutions towards the acceptance of climate science and use it to inform policy, where we have to inject more resources into resiliency efforts, the elevating or the hardening of certain communities. We need to do that. Where we should invest in wind and solar and other technologies, we should do that. I'm afraid our federal government won't be a partner for that until the next administration, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue that now. I do think the way we bring along more people in this conversation is all Floridians understand, regardless of voter registration, that we really do have an environmental economy in the state of Florida. Tourists come here because of our natural resources, because of the sunshine, the clean air, the clean water, and so forth, our beaches. And we have to protect it. Our healthy oceans, we have an ocean economy, how we manage our fisheries, whether or not we're preventing the next oil spill. Does all of that get to actual climate change? Incrementally, it gets there. But I just think this is a complete reversal of the direction we're going. We start through the appointment process, we bring back climate science to inform decisions of clean air, clean water, and then we move towards renewable energies in our utility system across the state. Yes, sir. Last one. We got one more Q&A and then we'll close.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. I guess my biggest question is what will you do to help restore the office of governor in terms of the ravages that have happened in this state? The current governor thinks he's a king, just like the president.
Yeah.
And he's invaded every school, college, local economy, local county board, plucking this person, plucking that person, installing his own people. The legislature's rubber stamping what he wants to do, now telling people that they can't control their own development in their local area. And it's getting to a point where I moved here 4 years ago from New York, and not that New York is a perfect place, but as a gay man, my husband and I just recently had to go and have all of our paperwork redone because you know what we're worried about? What if they reverse marriage equality? And what's on the books in this state? And I'm not hopeful that the current governor and the legislature are going to protect that. But the problem is that the office of the governor has to be able to do that and has to say, I'm not going to get in everybody's business. I'm going to get in the things that are most important. But I'm also going to know the time and place where I'm going to let the local elected people manage their business.
Yeah. No, I love that question because one of the things I get excited about is thinking about what adult leadership would look like in Tallahassee. Adult leadership. And I don't mean me. I mean all of us. I mean the people that we put in place to lead. Because everything you just said, there are a lot of opportunities and solutions to immediately put a stop to things. Okay, so initially, out of the gate, we have different voices of leadership. Different external communications about what it means, the values in Florida, what it means to live in Florida. You know one of the things I want to do if I have the opportunity to give an election night speech declaring victory? I want to say to the world that after 8 years in the state of Florida, where we have birthed the most vicious culture wars the country has seen, that those culture wars are over and you are welcome back to the state of Florida. I want to say that. Look, our tourism is slowing not because we charge $2 for a rental car tax or $5 for a hotel night. Our tourism is slowing because people don't feel welcome. Whether you're a member of the LGBT community or a Canadian, you don't feel welcome. or you don't want to spend your money in a state that is the home of culture wars, or you don't feel safe from gun violence, or you don't want to come to a state that has open carry. We start to roll all that back, and we get back to a place of celebration and celebrating our economy. Now, in some places, that adult leadership, again, means immediately putting into our state university system people who are going to embrace academia and diversity and culture and richness. We put into the Surgeon General's office people who believe in public health. There's a lot that can be done right away, but I do think we use the power of the governor's office in every excruciating, detailed way that we can, and that includes going to the courts on behalf of the people of Florida, of stopping of the rollbacks of fundamental protections, civil rights that we've seen under attack. Let me close with just one final thought on this, and I know Jane asked for money. Thank you for asking for money. I appreciate that. We're going to have enough money to win this race because no amount of money on the other side can stop a movement. I promise you that. But don't be discouraged by the conventional wisdom that all the other side does have all the money and we don't. That's true. That's true. But we just need enough money to run this race through next summer before people realize, wow, the cavalry's going to come in. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing before we leave, or as you leave. I'm going to ask you to do something very, 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 very important. The most important thing you can do today. I have two things. First, where I am insufficient as a candidate, help me. Make me smarter, make me stronger. I talk about public education in a way with more detail today than I did 4 months ago because I've sat with public educators and I've learned and refined where we need to go. I knew the general direction, but I've been made smarter. Within other communities, I've been made smarter. I want to appoint an economic development team that, frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, is led by all black county commissioners. I'm serious for this reason. County commissioners are duly elected, fully qualified. You cannot say that it is an attack on meritocracy. They balance economic development between tourism, between construction, between the trades, between ag. They understand economic development, but more than any others, they understand how economic development in Florida leaves people behind and leaves too many communities behind. I've gone to some of these county commissioners and said, help me lead, make me stronger, make me smarter, help me craft a plan that leaves nobody behind. If I'm insufficient, help me, refine me. If my values lack, the 3 values I mentioned, let's work on them together. Help me. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to ask you is this. Believe. Believe. Believe that in this moment we can do what I promised my daughter. Believe that in this moment there are enough people across the state of Florida capable of changing our direction. It starts by us agreeing that we believe together that we can change the direction of the state. And here's the good news, the best news of all. You already do. You already do. Because if you didn't, you would be home Googling Portugal. And you're not. You're here to be a part of this. Thank you for being a part of this today. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, David. Thank you, and thank all of you for being here. And I will say one more time, there's 2 things that you really can do to help David. Money and time. And time is going to be really critical because we need to get out here in Charlotte County, get people registered to vote by mail, and you can do that through us, through Indivisible. We are having a session on Friday to help with David's campaign specifically, but we will be out, and we're not gonna sit back and not get this done. So everyone here, anytime you can give, please do. Thank you. And I think that David's agreed to stay for a little bit and get some pictures with all of you. So if you're interested in that. And Sheila, you had a question. Well, you can use the QR code. You'll have to talk to the Reverend about that. Yeah, thank you, David.